J.J. Joe, Baylor Radio Color Analyst, former Baylor quarterback, joins us, who was in Lubbock as Sawyer Robertson went off. But every phase of the game did for Baylor. 5 touchdowns. He has been named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. Bryson Washington, the newcomer, had a big game. J.J., you've seen glimpses, but that seemed like it was all at one time. It finally came together. Was it Tech's defense is that bad, or was everything just kind of finally meshed together for Baylor?
Smoke, thanks for having me on. I think everything fell together. It felt like a combination of things, but we've seen glimpses of this team playing well. Iowa State early. Remember, they played well early. Had the bad thing happen with the block punt, and then things seemed to turn for the worse. Then Iowa State figured us out in the second half. But the other day, I just thought that we felt, and rightfully so, that we could block them up front. I think I saw it early in our offensive linemen. They felt like they could block them. We had success running the ball early. Coach Spavital was very committed to it. And once you can run the ball and impose your will, Smoke, is hard to explain to people that, like, when they can't stop you in one phase, especially the run game, everything else grows off of that. So it came together, man. It was great to see.
Defensively, they made the plays when they had to. Obviously, giving up 35 is not a banner day, but they were able to not have that moment, though, JJ, that you talked about, the block punt or something where the momentum got sucked out of them. Do you think that maybe now they can see that, like, oh, we don't have to put all our eggs in one basket of every moment of this game could break us?
Yeah, I thought, the defense has shown in spurts that they could play at a certain level, and it's really offensively where we were a little inconsistent. But I'll say this. I mean, I was very apprehensive going to the game. I was asked before the game, how did you feel? And whenever I'm in Lubbock anyway, I say this, but I said I don't feel good about this one. Just because they showed that they could run the ball with their runner, and we hadn't shown that. And then I thought both teams in the passing game were about the same. So I'll tell you, I was really impressed. And really defensively, I thought we really kind of held what's their tailback's name again?
Taj Brooks.
Yeah, Brooks, and really in check. He had 60 yards at halftime, ended up with 125, but he had really the one big one. And then I felt like, they scored 2 touchdowns in the last 10 minutes of the game when really we kind of had a nice little gap on them. So I'm not saying that's acceptable, as Coach Aranda, I think, was a little upset that they scored anything. But I thought defensively we showed ourselves well on Saturday.
How much did it help having healthy Caden Jenkins, who just seems to grab an interception, every, couple of games or so, and a healthy Carl Williams the fourth? And, I mean, that's something that, the losing stacks up and you just don't want to hear excuses, JJ, but there have been things that have occurred where you're like, all right, like they don't have this, they don't have that, and they finally had a lot of that on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Craig, I mean, I think it was a good thing that what happened to Caden Jenkins, and I don't mean having to miss games with whatever the injury was. I think in the Colorado game, he had a couple errors. He kind of lost balance, was a little bit overly physical, maybe didn't play those plays the right way in the Colorado game. And sometimes you find out what the measure of a young man is when you kind of go through something for the first time in his career where probably he was looked at as, hey, man, can you really play or not? Which we know he can. But I like to see that, okay, after he came back from whatever the injury was, he played good football on Saturday, and then he made, the kind of play we've used to seeing Caden Jenkins make. So I'm going to tell you, man, to have a guy who ultimately, I do agree with Coach Aranda, has NFL caliber talent, you need those guys to play at a high level. And I think I said that a few weeks ago that, the Matt Joneses, the Caden Jenkins, the Garmin Randolphs, all those guys have to play at a high level for this team to at least perform to the point that we expect it to.
JJ, like you said, there's been glimpses, but there were 2 times in that game, and it was early enough to where I said, oh, maybe this is different. And Tech cut the lead, 17-14 near the end of the half, and Baylor went right back down the field and scored. And then when they cut it 24-21, early third quarter, Brooks got loose for the first time. I'm like, oh, here comes that tidal wave.
Right.
And Baylor then went on a absolute just landslide, got a break in the special teams with the muff kick return. What was that like maybe past experiences, they didn't panic and just kept doing what they do?
I think so. But if you remember, Dave, against Iowa State, I mean, remember, Baylor jumped on Iowa State.
Yep, 14-3.
Had the block. They
Yep.
came back. I think we went into the half, up 3 or down 3 in the Iowa State game. I think we were up 3 maybe. Played a really good half where we should have been up a couple touchdowns. And when they closed the gap at the end of the half, at least I think we thwarted actually them having scored. We came out after half in the Iowa State game and scored. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. And I was like, okay, well, hey, man, we're going to be okay. But then we couldn't sustain it after that. So I think we've seen glimpses of this team having resiliency. It's just the execution was lacking at key times. So it was good to see them fight back. But I'll tell you, I said this before the game that I thought the talent between Tech and Baylor wasn't a big difference. The difference was those guys they had confidence they could win close games, and we didn't. We just never let it get close beyond that point that you mentioned, Smoke, and it was good to see.
Yep, I thought they responded, and that could have been a moment, especially the Taj Brooks run, because 4th and 1, it kind of got everybody juiced up. What was it like inside that stadium? Because we know it can be a very interesting atmosphere. Did they lose interest and kind of were they sitting on their hands?
It was quiet, man. I'm telling you, it's the quietest I've ever heard. Jones Stadium, and I've been there a lot of times. I know we had that break for about 10 years, but played there. I always thought people ask me what was one of the loudest stadiums you've been in, and I'm not sure if it's the way it's built because it's down a little bit. I felt like Jones Stadium was one of the loudest I'd ever been in, even louder than Tech, equivalent to A&M, but it was the quietest I've heard a stadium. But really, their team gave them very little to cheer about, and every time they did get something, as you mentioned, Baylor answered, and that's what you do, man. And this team has played pretty decent on the road, if we recall it. And yesterday on Saturday, they put it all together.
Did Josh Cameron have the best game ever for a former walk-on?
Hey, he's had some pretty good ones.
Yeah,
that punt return was sweet. Those touches. Mm-hmm. I mean, Josh, man, has impressed me. I mean, in the last 3 years or whatever it's been, I mean, he's just kind of really just continually got better. And he's their lead dog now. I mean, he's the lead dog. You just expect the guy to make a play. And I thought, like, at one point in that game, they had Josh over to the right, press box side, where we were going. I'm thinking that was south. I'm not sure 100%. But I was upset that we didn't take a shot. He had a corner that's like 5'11" on him, and we didn't take a shot at him. I forgot what we did. I was kind of upset, like, dude, this dude's kind of got it going. He had the punt return. He had some other stuff. I'm going to give him my 10 targets. But we eventually got it to him, and he's a man amongst boys.
JJ, obviously the offensive line had a lot to do with helping out Sawyer Robertson, giving him plenty of time, and then also giving him a running game to take some of the heat off of him. But what's impressed you most about him, and how cool is that to also see DeQuan Finn get a little bit of shine there late in that game and really put that thing away when Tech had, kind of changed the ending there a little bit with a couple of scores?
Yeah, I was glad to see DeQuan get some action. He expected things to work out a certain way, and they didn't. I think I talked about this last time I was with you guys a few weeks ago. And it's good to see him get some action because, you never know in this game, man. We have 5 to play, and you just got to have another guy back there you feel comfortable that can, he's not playing at the level that Sawyer was in the throw game, but he's a veteran quarterback with talent. So it's good to see him get action, get a little run in there, get a score. And that was sweet to see. And then, of course, Sawyer has continued to grow. I said at the beginning, I wanted to see him early in the season because when the first game when we saw him and he got a little time, I felt like, I think this guy's light is on. I just think it came on. And this is just a continuation. I just think Sawyer now is at that point where he's got enough action. Not that he knows everything, but he's seen for the majority most of what people are going to do to him. And he's performing well. And if the guys come with him, if you give him a run game, like finally he's got a run game where he's not the run game, I'll tell you, man, it's a sight to behold.
All right, so the run game, speaking of which, Bryson Washington's different.
Yes.
I remember Keenan Hall even saying that to me, that with all due respect, he wasn't saying it wasn't Reese or Dominic Richardson or even Dawson Pendergrass, but he's different. As a guy that played the game, he doesn't get enough touches, and he finally did. he needs to be more consistent. He's been banged up, but why is he different, JJ?
And he's learning. I think with Bryson, if you think about it, you have the size, you have the speed, but you also got to think what he does to defense when you see that guy coming. He has the ability. Pendergrass has the size, but Pendergrass doesn't have the suddenness.
Mm-hmm.
I still like Dawson in the short yardage game, especially at goal line. I like him. He's kind of suffered because Bryson's come on, so his carries have suffered. But nevertheless, he's different. He has the size, he has speed. He hadn't really shown me as much of the elusiveness, but he has just enough to where I think of the other traits where it makes him highly effective in this offense. So if you think about it, man, I think he had 7 carries at half. He only ended with 10 carries, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I know he went out for a while. And I think he was dealing with some stuff. So in 10 carries, he had over 100 yards because he broke a few of them, and that line played well. I don't want to go without saying. I remember seeing Lingale on that first run he had. Lingale had a fantastic block to seal that thing. And those guys up front, as much as we bash them against the Tech defensive line that I thought we should control, they did it.
Last thing, Oklahoma State. Man, they were close to getting one of those wins, but they've been kind of in a free fall, been a very disappointing year. Their quarterback play is kind of a mess, and now Rangel's hurt. Games at home, Baylor gets back home. The win might help people get back. It's homecoming.
Yeah.
But sometimes when it's in this moment, not back in the early part of the 2010s, but in a moment like this, you get maybe a chance to bring some people back. How big would it be with TCU the following week to put up a W other than just a win-loss column?
I think it'll be huge. This team needs to get on a run. I mean, it's we've had so many close wins, or you want to call them losses, and we just didn't come through. Now I think this team saw, hey, if we perform at a high level, this is what it can look like. We can take a team out. Oklahoma State will be well. I know that Ollie Gordon left the game early, I think, last week, so I'm not sure what his health is. But Oklahoma State played well against BYU in the hostile environment. They're going to be a hard out. But this team needs this W. We need it. So then if you stack a couple, I think if this team can stack a couple and just taste it a little bit, taste it again, I think the rest of them, they'll figure it out. And I'm saying that right now. I think if they can get this one and taste it and stay healthy as much as we can, I think this team can finish this thing out. And I'm interested to see it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. That's why I'm saying this week is huge, because Oklahoma State is the kind of team that they've lost a few close ones, and they can beat you.
Yep, no question. Thank you for the time, young man. Appreciate it. JJ, Baylor Radio Color Analyst, and also former Baylor quarterback with us.